Right, so we're going to have a look at my Target collection. So we have Doctor and the Daleks, the Aztecs, my favourite William Hartnell here, the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Oh, I love the Dalek Invasion of Earth, it's so good. Zarbi, which is really good. My favourite historical, The Crusade. Galaxy 4, The Mythmakers, The Gunfighters, which is a story I actually appreciate when not a lot of other people do. Are the War Machines. Oh, I love the War Machines, it's so underrated. Such a great story, that one. I love it. God, I want to read that at some point. And here we have The 10th Planet, which is a really good story. Now on to the mighty Patrick Troughton, my favourite Doctor, with the jewel in my collection, one of the two jewels. Power of the Daleks. The Cybermen, love that. That's Moonbase, love that book. One of my favourites again, the Macra Terror, love the Macra Terror. The Faceless Ones, oh, so underrated. More people need to appreciate the Faceless Ones. And the Jewel, my favourite story of all time, The Evil of the Daleks. Brilliant story, that one. Here we have The Tomb of the Cybermen, which is a classic. Abominable Snowmen, the first Target book I ever read, and it's a brilliant story. Highly recommend that one. The Ice Warriors, another great book. Love that cover. Enemy of the World, great TV story, but the book is, well, leaves a lot to be desired, unfortunately. I'll pick it up in a minute. Web of Fear, great TV story, great book, one of my favourites. Fury from the Deep, big book, but really good. Love that one. The Dominators, oh, love the Dominators. I know a lot of people hate the Dominators. I flipping love the Dominators. Got to read that at some point. I love the TV story. No one else does. The Invasion by Ian Marter, one of the greatest books. Really good, that one. The Seeds of Death, which is a classic. Of course, in many people's eyes, I love The Seeds of Death. And it came out the same day as the VHS. The War Games, which I have mixed feelings on because I love the TV story, but the book is so thin. This is a 10-part story, and it should be longer. Now on to Jon Pertwee, another one of my favourites, with the Auton Invasion, which I've had for years. Love the Auton Invasion. Doctor Who and the Cave Monsters, or Doctor and the Silurians. I love the TV story. Really should read the book again. I remember it being very, very good. Then we have one of my favourites, which not a lot of people seem to know about, but I think is flipping marvellous. Ambassadors of Death. Terror of the Autons, another classic, of course. This is an unusual, it's a star re-release of my favourite master story, The Mind of Evil and The Claws of Axos. Doomsday Weapon, or Colony in Space, which is a story I appreciate. The Demons, good story, that one. Day of the Daleks. Curse of Peladon, nice book, that one. I quite like Curse of Peladon. Sea Devils, love this cover, much better than the reissue, though I will admit it's I do find it a little bit overrated. Still a good story though. Now onto my second shelf. As you can see, Pertwee takes up a lot on the shelf because he's one of my favourites, but Troughton, of course, there's not as much for him. Now we have The Three Doctors, which is a classic. Love The Three Doctors. Carnival of Monsters, nice cover. Space War, which I got at Cardiff Market on holiday. The Daleks, which I read yesterday, good book, also got at the Cardiff Market. And The Mighty Green Death. The Time Warrior. Invasion of the Dinosaur Invasion, which is a great story. Love that one. Great cover art too. Death to the Daleks, another great cover. Good book, that one. The Monster of Peladon by Brian Hales. Oh no, Terrence Dicks. Brian Hales wrote the story, but Terrence Dicks, I actually quite like that one. Not a lot of people seem to. And Planet of Spiders, final Pertwee story. Quite a good book, that one. Love that story, I do. Giant Robot. The reissue of The Ark in Space. Brilliant book. Brilliant story, that one. Sontaran Experiment, which is, again, that's the same size as the War Games, which puzzles me because it's only two-parter. The Mighty Genesis of the Daleks, a story that not a lot of people like. I kid, I jest. Everyone loves this one. Revenge of the Cybermen, which is the first story I ever watched. Loch Ness Monster, Terror of the Zygons. Planet of Evil. Oh, I love Planet of Evil. It's so underrated. Yeah, only no one seems to like it as much as I do. Except Elizabeth Sladen. Pyramids of Mars, which is a classic. Android Invasion, which is a story I appreciate. One of my favourites, The Brain of Morbius. Love that cover, really cool. And probably my favourite cover in the range, The Seeds of Doom. One of my favourite books. Philip Hinchcliffe, love that book. Mask of Mandragora, another underrated one I actually appreciate when not a lot of other people seem to. Hand of Fear. My good friend Amy, this is her favourite story because it was the first one she ever watched. Deadly Assassin, good story. Face of Evil. The Robots of Death, very thin book, but brilliant story. Have to get around to reading that one at some point. And my favourite Tom Baker, The Talons of Weng-Chiang. Oh, I love The Talons of Weng-Chiang. It's such a brilliant story. Horror of Fang Rock, which is a brilliant book. Great cover, that one. Best story of the Graham Williams era. Visible Enemy. Again, a very thin target book, that one. I'll put that one down. Please do not try and escape. Image of the Fendal. An underrated one, actually, really like that one. No one else seems to talk about that one. Invasion of Time. No one's a Peter Davison with Colin Baker, which I don't own too many of. Visitation, which is brilliant. My favourite Davison, Earthshock. Good book, but not a fan of the cover. 5 Doctors, which I think is a bit overrated. I do prefer the 3 Doctors. And the re-release of Resurrection of the Daleks. Great book, that one. Not a lot of people seem to like that book. I love it. Twin Dilemma. Vengeance on Varos, the re-release. Actually not a bad cover. I quite like that one. 2 Doctors by the legendary Robert Holmes. The only book he ever wrote. Revelation of the Daleks. Love that one. The Only McCoy, and it's also my favourite of his, The Curse of Fenric. Mission to Magnus, which is a missing adventure. And the TV movie, which is actually, if you open it up, it's actually signed by Paul and Gary. Yeah, there's my Target books. Yep, obviously I like Troughton the best, and I hope to get more in the future.